The cloth came away, stained rust and black, and Willa Oakley's hands trembled as she cleaned the silver burn that split the Vampire King's pale skin like lightning across porcelain. "What did this to you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast stone chamber beneath the city. Valdren Ymir's crimson eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. He sat shirtless on the edge of an ornate bed draped in midnight silk, his white hair falling past his shoulders like a waterfall of moonlight. The wound ran from his ribs to his hip, angry and blistering in a way she'd never seen on vampire flesh before. "A weapon that shouldn't exist anymore," he said quietly, his voice carrying centuries of controlled fury. "Forged specifically to kill my kind." Willa's fingers hesitated over the wound. She'd been working as a nurse in the emergency room for 3 years, but nothing in her medical training had prepared her for treating immortal creatures with silver poisoning. 2 weeks ago, she'd stumbled into the wrong alley at the wrong time and witnessed a vampire execution, Valdren executing a rogue vampire who'd been slaughtering humans in downtown Seattle. Instead of killing her for witnessing vampire law enforcement, he'd looked at her with those ancient eyes and said something that changed everything. "You have steady hands and a brave heart. I may have use for you." Now she was here, in the hidden court beneath Pioneer Square, cleaning wounds that could actually kill the most powerful vampire in the Pacific Northwest. "Hold still," she murmured, reaching for the specialized silver extraction kit he'd provided. The tools looked medieval, thin silver hooks and crystal vials filled with what he called purification serum. She'd learned quickly that regular medicine didn't work on vampires. Their bodies rejected modern pharmaceuticals, but ancient remedies crafted from specific herbs and vampire blood created centuries ago still functioned. Valdren watched her work with absolute stillness. Vampires didn't need to breathe unless they chose to, and right now he looked like a marble statue, beautiful, terrifying, and utterly inhuman. His skin was the color of fresh snow, smooth and flawless everywhere except for the vicious burn. His body was lean but powerfully built, every muscle defined like something sculpted by an obsessive artist. "You're not afraid of me," he observed as she carefully began extracting the microscopic silver particles embedded in his flesh. "I'm terrified of you," Willa corrected, not looking up from her work. "I'm just better at functioning through fear than most people." A sound that might have been a laugh rumbled in his chest. Honesty. How refreshing. She'd learned over the past 2 weeks that Valdren valued directness above almost everything else. His court operated on brutal honesty and ancient codes of honor that seemed bizarre to modern sensibilities. Vampires didn't lie to each other not because they were morally opposed to it, but because they considered it beneath them. Their word was their bond, sealed by blood oaths that carried actual magical weight. "Tell me what happened," Willa said as she worked. Talking helped distract her from the fact that she was currently touching the bare skin of a creature who could tear her throat out before she could even scream. Valdren was silent for a long moment. Then, "There's a faction that wants my throne. They call themselves the Covenant of the Red Dawn. They believe vampires should stop hiding from humanity and take their rightful place as rulers over the mortal world." Willa's hands paused. "That's insane. There are billions of humans and maybe a few 100,000 vampires worldwide. You'd be destroyed." "Correct. Which is why I've spent the last 3 centuries maintaining the treaties that keep us hidden and keep humans safe from the more predatory members of my species." His voice carried a weight of exhaustion that surprised her. "But there are those who see my methods as weakness. They want war." She resumed working, using a magnifying glass to locate the remaining silver fragments. Each tiny piece had to be removed or his body wouldn't heal. Silver acted like a poison to vampires, preventing their supernatural regeneration and slowly spreading through their system if left untreated. So they came after you with a silver blade. A silver whip, actually, dipped in consecrated silver dust and blessed by a corrupt priest who sold his services for the promise of immortality. Valdren's lip curled in disgust. "They ambushed me in the old catacombs beneath St. James Cathedral, 6 of them. I killed 4. And the other 2? Escaped." The way he said it made it clear how much that fact bothered him. "They'll report back to their masters that I'm wounded, vulnerable." Willa finally looked up at him, meeting those ancient crimson eyes. Are you vulnerable? Yes. The honesty in that single word struck her. Silver wounds take weeks to heal, even for someone of my age and power. And during that time, I'm weaker, slower, more mortal. Something protective surged in Willa's chest, which was absurd. This creature didn't need her protection. He'd lived for over 800 years and ruled vampire society across 3 continents. But there was something in his eyes right now, a flicker of genuine concern that made him seem less like a monster and more like a person carrying impossible responsibilities. Then we need to make sure this heals as quickly as possible, she said firmly, returning her attention to the wound. I'll need to come back every few hours to monitor it and change the dressings. Silver poisoning can spread if we're not careful. You would do that? Valdren asked quietly. Risk coming back here repeatedly, deeper into my world? You need help. I can help. It's that simple. She extracted another silver fragment and dropped it into a crystal vial, where it sizzled against the purification serum. Besides, you said yourself, steady hands, brave heart. I'm beginning to think I underestimated the brave part. There was something almost like warmth in his voice now. Most humans who learn what I am run screaming or try to kill me. You're different. Willa shrugged, focusing on her work. I see people at their worst every day in the ER. Humans can be just as monstrous as anything that goes bump in the night. At least you're honest about what you are. Over the next hour, she meticulously cleaned and treated the wound. Valdren remained perfectly still the entire time, though she occasionally felt his gaze on her face with an intensity that made her skin prickle. When she finally finished and began wrapping his torso in specially prepared bandages soaked in healing herbs, he caught her wrist gently. Willa. The way he said her name sent shivers down her spine. His touch was cool but not cold and infinitely careful. You understand that by helping me, you've made yourself a target. The Covenant will learn of you. They'll try to use you against me. She met his eyes steadily. Then I guess you'll have to keep me safe. Something shifted in his expression, surprise perhaps, or respect. His thumb brushed against her pulse point, and she knew he could feel her heartbeat racing. Yes, he said softly. I suppose I will. That night, Willa didn't go home. Valdren insisted it was too dangerous, that the Covenant had eyes everywhere in the city above. Instead, he gave her a room in his underground court, a vast network of chambers and halls built into the abandoned underground of old Seattle, expanded and reinforced over decades into something magnificent and strange. The room he provided was larger than her entire apartment, decorated in dark wood and deep crimson fabrics. A fire burned in an actual fireplace, and the bed looked like something from a palace. She stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. This is too much, she said. Valdren stood behind her in the corridor, now wearing a black shirt that hung open over the fresh bandages. It's a guest room. One of the smaller ones, actually. You consider this small? My kind tend toward excess. It's a side effect of immortality. You accumulate wealth and develop expensive tastes. He paused. There are clothes in the wardrobe that should fit you. My people will bring you anything else you need. Willa turned to face him. Your people? You mean other vampires? Some vampires, some humans who have chosen to serve the court. Not everyone here is a predator, Willa. Many are simply seeking purpose or protection. His expression grew serious. You're free to leave whenever you wish. You're not a prisoner. But I'd be in danger up there. Almost certainly. She took a breath, processing everything. Okay, then I'll stay. For now. Until this situation with the Covenant is resolved. That could take weeks. Months, even. Then I'll need to arrange a leave of absence from the hospital. She pulled out her phone, then paused. Will I get reception down here? A slight curve touched his lips. We have Wi-Fi, Willa. We're ancient, not primitive. Despite everything, she found herself almost smiling. Good to know. Valdren lingered in the doorway after she'd made her arrangements, watching her with that unreadable expression. Finally, she turned to him and asked, What? I'm trying to understand why you're taking all of this so calmly. Willa sat on the edge of the enormous bed and considered the question seriously. My little brother died when I was 16. Cancer. I watched him waste away for 2 years, and there was nothing anyone could do. After that, after seeing what real helplessness looks like, everything else feels manageable. You're a vampire king dealing with a rebellion, and you got hurt. Those are problems with solutions. So I focus on the solutions. Something shifted in Valdren's ancient eyes, a softness she hadn't seen before. I'm sorry about your brother. So am I, she met his gaze. But it taught me not to freeze when things get scary. It taught me to act. He nodded slowly. That's a rare quality. Don't lose it. I don't plan to. She hesitated, then asked, Can I ask you something? Always. What's it like, living for centuries, watching the world change around you? Valdren leaned against the door frame, and for a moment he looked genuinely thoughtful. Imagine reading a book that never ends. At first, every page is fascinating, full of new experiences and discoveries. But eventually, you start seeing patterns, the same stories repeating with different characters, the same mistakes made over and over. He paused. It becomes lonely, exhausting. You watch everyone you care about age and die over and over until you stop letting yourself care. That sounds horrible. It is. His voice was barely above a whisper. But then occasionally you meet someone who reminds you why the story is worth continuing. Someone who makes the world feel new again. The weight of his gaze made Willa's breath catch. She looked away, suddenly aware of how intimate this conversation had become. You should rest, Valdren said quietly, straightening. I'll have guards posted outside your door. No one will harm you while you're under my protection. Thank you. He turned to leave, then paused. Willa, tomorrow, I'll need you to meet the rest of the council. They'll want to know who you are, and why a human is suddenly so close to their king. Will they be angry? Some will be curious, some will be suspicious, and some will see you as an opportunity. His expression hardened. Stay close to me during the meeting. Don't accept food or drink from anyone else, and don't make any deals or promises, no matter how innocuous they seem. Vampire politics are complicated. Noted. Her heart was racing again. Anything else? Yes. He looked back at her one more time. Don't trust anyone but me, not until you understand how things work here. After he left, Willa lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and processing everything. 2 weeks ago, her biggest concern had been covering rent and dealing with difficult patients. Now, she was living in an underground vampire court, treating the immortal king who ruled it, and apparently in danger from a rebel faction that wanted to start a war with humanity. Her life had become completely insane. And yet, when she finally drifted off to sleep, she felt safer than she had in years. The next evening, vampires operated on nocturnal schedules. She'd learned Willa changed into one of the outfits from the wardrobe. The clothes fit perfectly, which should have been creepy but instead just seemed efficient. The dress was deep burgundy, elegant but not overly formal, with long sleeves and a high neckline. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. A knock at the door made her jump. Come in. A young woman entered, also dressed in dark colors, her skin pale but not vampire pale. Human then, or mostly human. She was perhaps 19 or 20, with dark hair and nervous eyes. His Majesty sent me to escort you to the council chamber, the girl said, her voice soft. My name is Mira. I'm one of the court attendants. Nice to meet you, Mira. Willa grabbed her medical bag. She'd need to check Valdren's wound again soon. Is it far? Not too far. Just through the main hall and down the eastern corridor. Mira hesitated. Miss Oakley, may I give you some advice? Please. The council can be intimidating, but they respect strength and directness. Don't let them see fear, even if you feel it, and stay near His Majesty. He won't let anyone harm you. Willa studied the younger woman. You sound like you've been here a while. 3 years. My family was killed by a rogue vampire, and King Valdren saved me. He executed the one who murdered them and offered me a place here. Mira's expression was fierce with loyalty. He protects those who can't protect themselves. Not all vampires are like that. I'm starting to realize that. The walk through the underground court was like stepping into another world. The corridors were carved from stone but decorated with rich tapestries and paintings that looked centuries old. They passed other vampires Willa could tell by their white skin and hair, by the way they moved with inhuman grace. Some watched her with curiosity, others with hunger barely concealed. She kept her chin up and her stride confident, remembering Mira's advice. The council chamber was enormous, with a vaulted ceiling and a long table made from what looked like black marble. 7 vampires sat around it, all of them ancient-looking in the way that had nothing to do with physical age and everything to do with the weight in their eyes. Valdren stood at the head of the table, and his gaze found Willa immediately. "Counselors," he said, his voice carrying effortless authority. "This is Willa Oakley, the human physician I mentioned. She's treating my injury and will be residing in the court under my protection until the threat from the Covenant is neutralized." One of the vampires, a woman with hair so white it seemed to glow and eyes like frozen amber, spoke first. "A human physician? How modern of you, Valdren." "Modern problems require modern solutions, Serafina." Valdren gestured for Willa to approach. "Willa has skills that our traditional healers lack. She understands both human medicine and vampire physiology." Another counselor, a man with sharp features and a cruel mouth, leaned forward. "And what makes you think we can trust her? She could be a spy for the Covenant, or worse, for one of the human hunting organizations." Willa spoke before Valdren could. "If I were a spy, I'm doing a terrible job. I've seen the layout of your court, met your people, and learned that you have a vulnerability to silver weapons. If I wanted to betray you, I already have all the information I'd need." The chamber went silent. Several vampires stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to amusement. Serafina's lips curved into something that might have been a genuine smile. "She has a point, Draven. And she has courage to speak so boldly in this chamber." Valdren's voice carried a hint of warning. "Willa is here because I trust her. That should be sufficient." "Your trust has been misplaced before," another counselor said carefully. This one was older looking than the others, with a face like weathered stone. "Forgive us for being cautious, my king, but a human in our inner sanctum during a time of rebellion seems unwise." "What seems unwise is questioning my judgment, Lucian." Valdren's tone could have frozen blood. "I am king here. My word is law. Willa stays." The tension in the room was suffocating. Willa could feel the power dynamics at play. These vampires respected Valdren, but they weren't afraid to challenge him. This was a court of immortals who'd lived through centuries of politics. They knew how to maneuver. "Perhaps," Serafina said smoothly, "Miss Oakley could demonstrate her usefulness. Valdren, I assume you need your wound checked?" It was a test. Willa could see it in the female vampire's calculating eyes. They wanted to see how comfortable she was working with their king, how he responded to her presence. "If His Majesty is amenable," Willa said calmly, "I should examine the wound and change the dressings." Valdren held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. He moved to a side chamber adjoining the council room, clearly designed for exactly these kinds of situations. Willa followed, acutely aware that every vampire in that room was watching their every move. Inside the smaller chamber, Valdren closed the door, and some of the tension left his shoulders. "You handled them well. They're testing me, seeing if I'll crack under pressure." She set down her medical bag and gestured for him to sit. "I've dealt with hospital administrators. I can handle vampire politics." He actually laughed at that, a real laugh that transformed his face. For a moment, he looked younger, less burdened. "Fair enough." As he removed his shirt, Willa tried to maintain professional detachment, but it was difficult. The man-creature, whatever he was objectively beautiful in a way that seemed designed to lure and trap. But it was more than physical beauty. There was something magnetic about him, something that pulled at her in ways she didn't fully understand. She unwrapped the bandages carefully and examined the wound. "It's healing, but slowly. The silver poisoning is still in your system." She touched the skin around the burn gently. "Does this hurt?" "Everything hurts right now," he admitted. "Silver feels like acid in my veins." "I'm sorry." She began cleaning the wound with fresh solution. "I wish I could do more." "You're doing more than you know." His hand caught hers, stilling her movements. "Willa, I need you to understand something. The council is right to be cautious. Humans and vampires don't mix well. Our relationship has always been predator and prey, with rare exceptions. So what am I? She asked quietly. What are we doing here? I don't know. His crimson eyes searched her face. All I know is that when I look at you, I don't see prey. I see someone brave and kind and steadfast. I see someone I want to protect, someone I want to know better. And that terrifies me, because I haven't felt anything like this in over 200 years. Willa's heart hammered in her chest. Valdren. You can leave, he said, though his hand still held hers. I'll provide protection. Make sure you're safe. You don't have to stay in this world. She looked down at their joined hands, her warm and human, his cool and ancient. What if I want to stay? Something flared in his eyes, hot and fierce. Then I'll keep you safe, no matter what it costs. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Then Willa cleared her throat and gently extracted her hand. I need to finish treating your wound. Of course. They didn't speak much as she completed her work, but the silence was comfortable now, intimate in a way that made Willa's skin tingle. When she'd finished and he'd dressed again, they returned to the council chamber. The vampires watched them enter with varying expressions. Serafina looked intrigued. Draven looked suspicious. Lucian looked thoughtful. Well, Serafina asked, how is our king's health? Improving, Willa said firmly. With proper treatment and time, he'll make a full recovery. Excellent news. Serafina's gaze moved between Willa and Valdren. Then perhaps we should discuss the actual threat at hand. The Covenant of the Red Dawn has been quiet since the attack. Too quiet. Valdren moved to his seat at the head of the table, and Willa realized she had no designated place. Before she could feel awkward about it, Valdren gestured to the chair immediately to his right, a position of honor and trust. Sit, he said simply. More than one counselor's eyebrows rose, but no one objected as Willa took the seat. The Covenant is planning something, Valdren said, his tone all business now. They wouldn't have attacked me directly unless they were ready to make a move. Lucian, what have your informants reported? The older vampire leaned forward. There are rumors of a gathering. Vampires from other territories arriving in Seattle under cover of darkness. The Covenant is building an army. How many? 50, perhaps more. Young vampires, mostly. Ones who don't remember the last war between our kind and humans, who think they're invincible. Lucian's expression was grim. They're being promised power and status in the new world, order the Covenant plans to create. Draven spoke up. We should strike first, find their stronghold and destroy them before they can organize. That would start exactly the kind of open conflict I've spent centuries avoiding, Valdren countered. We need proof of their plans first, something concrete we can present to the other courts. If we move without justification, we'll look like the aggressors. And while we wait for proof, they grow stronger, Draven argued. My king, with respect, caution will get us killed. Willa surprised herself by speaking. What if we could get someone inside? Find out their plans from within? All eyes turned to her. She felt the weight of their ancient gazes and forced herself not to shrink back. Explain, Valdren said, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. The Covenant doesn't know me. They don't know what I look like or that I'm connected to you. What if I could somehow make contact with them, present myself as someone sympathetic to their cause? Absolutely not. Valdren's voice was hard as iron. That's far too dangerous. But she has a point, Serafina mused. A human infiltrator would be unexpected, and if she's caught, she has plausible deniability. She could claim she was coerced, that she doesn't know anything of value. I said no. Valdren stood, his presence suddenly overwhelming. This discussion is over. We'll find another way. Lucian studied Valdren with knowing eyes. You care for her. That's why you're refusing to consider it. The silence that followed was deafening. Valdren's jaw tightened, and Willa could see the muscle jumping beneath his pale skin. I won't send someone under my protection into danger, he said finally. That's not negotiable. Even if it could save hundreds of lives, Serafina pressed. Valdren, if the Covenant starts a war, humans will die, vampires will die, everything you've built could crumble. Willa stood as well, facing Valdren. She's right, and I'm volunteering. This is my choice. No, you don't get to make that decision for me. She kept her voice calm but firm. I'm not one of your subjects. I'm a free human, and I'm offering to help." They stared at each other across the table, and Willa could feel the tension crackling between them. She understood his instinct to protect, but she also understood that sometimes protection meant letting people take risks. "I won't lose you," Valdren said quietly, and the raw emotion in his voice made her chest ache. "You won't," she promised, "because I'll be careful and I'll have you watching my back." The council meeting ended without a resolution, but Willa could tell the idea had taken root. As vampires filed out of the chamber, Serafina paused beside Willa. "You're either very brave or very foolish," the ancient vampire said. "I haven't decided which." "Can't I be both?" Serafina's laugh was like crystal bells. "I think I like you, human. Don't get yourself killed. It would upset our king, and he's much more pleasant when he's happy." After the counselors left, Willa found herself alone with Valdren in the chamber. He stood by a window, or rather, a carved opening that showed the underground caverns beyond, lit by bioluminescent fungi that cast everything in soft blue light. "You can't do this," he said without turning around. "Please don't ask me to let you do this." Willa walked up beside him. "Tell me about the last war, the one Lucian mentioned." Valdren was quiet for a long time. Then, it was 1847. A group of vampires decided humans were cattle, nothing more. They started hunting openly, leaving bodies in the streets. Humans fought back, formed hunting parties, developed weapons specifically designed to kill us. Thousands died on both sides before the vampire elders finally intervened and established the treaties we follow today. "And you were there?" "I helped end it. I executed the vampires who'd started the killing, made alliances with human leaders who understood that coexistence was possible." His hands gripped the stone windowsill. "I saw cities burn, Willa. I saw humans stake vampires in the streets and vampires drain entire families out of revenge. I won't let that happen again." She placed her hand over his. "Then let me help prevent it." He turned to her, and the anguish in his eyes took her breath away. "If something happens to you, if they hurt you, they won't, because you'll be there." She squeezed his hand. "I trust you, Valdren. Trust me back." He pulled her into his arms suddenly, holding her against his chest. She could feel the absence of a heartbeat, the coolness of his skin through his clothes. But she also felt his strength, his careful control, as he held her like something precious. "I haven't cared about anyone like this in so long," he whispered into her hair. "I'd forgotten what it feels like, how terrifying it is." Willa wrapped her arms around him, returning the embrace. "I know. I feel it too." They stood like that for a long moment, and Willa felt something shift between them, something that went beyond gratitude or obligation. This was deeper, more real. When they finally separated, Valdren kept his hands on her shoulders. "If we do this, if I allow this, there will be rules. You follow my instructions exactly. You take no unnecessary risks. And at the first sign of danger, you get out. Agreed?" "Agreed." "I mean it, Willa. Your safety comes before the mission, before everything." "I understand." He searched her face, then nodded slowly. "Then we'll need to plan carefully. The Covenant will be suspicious of anyone who approaches them. We'll need a believable story." Over the next several days, they worked on creating Willa's cover identity. She would be a nurse who'd lost someone to vampire violence, not entirely false, since her brother had died young, even if not from vampires. She'd be bitter about the vampire-friendly policies in the medical system, angry at how resources were diverted to help monsters. It was a role that made her uncomfortable, but it was believable. During those days, Willa spent most of her time with Valdren. She checked his wound twice daily, and slowly, painfully slowly, it began to heal. But more than that, they talked. He told her about his human life 8 centuries ago in Norway, about watching the world transform from medieval kingdoms to the modern age. She told him about growing up in Portland, about her dreams of becoming a doctor before financial reality redirected her to nursing, about the hole her brother's death had left in her family. They grew closer in ways that had nothing to do with the situation and everything to do with genuine connection. Valdren made her laugh with dry observations about modern culture. Willa challenged his cynicism with her persistent optimism. They played chess in his private study. He won every game, but seemed to enjoy her strategic attempts. They walked through the underground gardens, where plants that thrived without sunlight grew in impossible profusion. One night, nearly a week after the council meeting, they sat together in his study. A fire burned in the hearth not for warmth, but because Willa liked the light and Valdren liked making her comfortable. "Can I ask you something personal?" Willa said, curled up in a leather armchair with a book she'd been pretending to read. Valdren looked up from his desk where he'd been reviewing reports. "Always. Have you ever been in love, in all these centuries?" His expression grew distant. "Once, a long time ago. She was human, like you. A healer in my village when I was newly turned." He paused. "I thought I could make it work, thought I could be careful enough not to hurt her. But I was young and still learning control. One night I was too hungry and He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "I'm sorry," Willa said softly. "It taught me an important lesson. Vampires and humans aren't meant to be together. The power imbalance is too great, the danger too real." His crimson eyes met hers. "Which is why whatever this is between us, it can't go where we both know it wants to go." Willa set down her book. "You're not that same vampire anymore. You have control now." "Control isn't the same as safety. I'm still a predator, Willa. My instincts still tell me to hunt, to feed, to take what I want." His voice dropped. "And I want you. More than I've wanted anything in centuries. That makes you incredibly dangerous to be around me." She should have been frightened. Any rational person would have been frightened. Instead, she stood and walked over to his desk. "And yet, I've never felt safer than when I'm with you." "Willa, I'm not naive, Valdren. I know what you are. I know the risks." She placed her hands on his desk, leaning forward. "But I also know that you would never hurt me. I know that whatever you feel for me, it's real. And I know that I feel the same way." He stood abruptly, moving to the window with that inhuman speed. "This is impossible." "Why? Because you're a vampire? Because I'm human? We're both adults. We both know what we're getting into. You don't know." He turned to face her, and his eyes were glowing now, brighter than usual. "You don't know what it's like to feel the hunger, to want someone's blood as much as you want their company, to know that one moment of weakness could destroy them." Willa walked over to him calmly. "Then don't be weak. It's not that simple, isn't it?" She reached up and touched his face, feeling the cool smoothness of his skin. "You've controlled yourself for 800 years. You've built a kingdom on discipline and honor. You've protected countless humans from rogue vampires. You think I don't trust you to control yourself with me?" Valdren's hand came up to cover hers, pressing her palm against his cheek. "You have far too much faith in me. Or maybe you don't have enough faith in yourself." He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, something had shifted. The resistance was still there, but it was crumbling. "If we do this, if we try this, things will change. My court will talk. Other vampires will see you as a weakness. The danger you're already in will multiply. I know. And I will be possessive, protective to the point of suffocating. It's vampire nature. I won't be able to help it. I can handle that." He pulled her closer, his hands settling on her waist. "You're absolutely certain? Because once I admit what I feel, once I claim you as mine in front of the court, there's no going back. You'll be bound to me in ways that go beyond human understanding." Willa's heart was racing, but her voice was steady. "I'm certain." Valdren kissed her then, and it was nothing like she'd imagined. His lips were cool but soft, and he kissed her with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with his strength. It was a kiss that spoke of centuries of loneliness, of hope long abandoned, of feelings too powerful to deny anymore. When they broke apart, both breathing harder than necessary. Well, she was breathing harder. He was just matching her rhythm. He rested his forehead against hers. "You've undone me completely," he whispered. "I was content in my isolation before you. Now all I can think about is keeping you close." "Then keep me close," she whispered back. "I'm not going anywhere." That night marked a shift in their relationship. They didn't announce it formally, but the court could tell. The way Valdren looked at her, the way he kept her close during meetings, the way his hand would find hers when they walked through the corridors, it all spoke volumes. Serafina approached Willa one evening with a knowing expression. So you've captured our king's heart. That's no small feat. I didn't capture anything, Willa said. It just happened. Nothing just happens in vampire society, dear. Everything is calculated, measured, weighed. The ancient vampire studied her. But I believe you, which makes you either the luckiest human alive or the most doomed, possibly both. That's comforting, Serafina laughed. I like you, Willa Oakley. You have spine, that's good. You'll need it for what's coming. The mission with the Covenant. Among other things, Serafina's expression grew serious. Loving a vampire king is not easy. There will be those who resent you, who see you as an interloper. There will be challenges to your position, subtle and overt. And there will always be the fundamental difference between your natures. I know all that. Do you? Serafina tilted her head. Do you know that you'll age and he won't? That you'll grow old and die while he remains eternally young? Have you thought about what that means? Willa had thought about it late at night when she couldn't sleep, but she pushed those thoughts away. We'll figure it out. We have time. Less time than you think if the Covenant has its way. Serafina placed a hand on Willa's shoulder. Make your move soon, child. Every day they grow stronger. She was right. Valdren's wound was nearly healed now, and they'd delayed long enough. That night, Willa and Valdren finalized the plan. There's a vampire bar on the waterfront, Valdren explained, pointing to a map. It's neutral territory, but we know the Covenant uses it for recruitment. You'll go there, make yourself visible, and wait for them to approach you. And you'll be nearby? I'll be closer than your shadow. His expression was fierce. I'll have people inside the bar, and I'll be positioned where I can reach you in seconds if needed. At the first sign of trouble, you signal, and we extract you. What's the signal? He pulled out a small pendant on a silver chain. Wear this. If you activate it, he showed her the tiny button hidden in the design. It sends a pulse that I'll feel immediately. I'll come for you. Willa took the pendant, studying it. The design was beautiful, intricate. This is more than just a tracking device, isn't it? It's a protection charm, one of the few pieces of magic our kind still knows how to craft. It won't stop a determined attack, but it will give you a few crucial seconds. He fastened it around her neck himself, his fingers lingering on her skin. Willa, if anything happens to you, nothing will happen. We'll be careful, and we'll get the information we need. She kissed him softly. Trust the plan. I trust you. It's everyone else I don't trust. 2 nights later, Willa walked into the vampire bar on the waterfront wearing jeans, a leather jacket, and an expression of bitter determination. The pendant hung beneath her shirt, a cool weight against her sternum. The bar was called Crimson, which seemed on the nose but was apparently typical of vampire establishments. Inside, it looked like any other trendy nightclub: dark lighting, pulsing music, beautiful people. Except all the beautiful people had white skin and an otherworldly quality that marked them as definitely not human. Willa sat at the bar and ordered a drink she had no intention of finishing. Around her, vampires fed from willing humans, drank crimson-colored cocktails that definitely weren't wine, and danced with inhuman grace. It was surreal and frightening and utterly fascinating. She'd been there for maybe 20 minutes when someone slid onto the stool beside her. You don't belong here. The voice was male, cultured, with an accent Willa couldn't place. She glanced over. The vampire was young-looking, maybe mid-20s in appearance, with the trademark white hair and pale skin. His eyes were dark red, almost burgundy. I belong wherever I want to belong, Willa said, channeling the bitter persona they'd created. A human, alone in a vampire bar, either very brave or very stupid. He studied her with interest. I'm Casimir, and you are? Willa. Just Willa? That's all you need to know. He smiled, showing a hint of fang. I like you already. So, Willa just Willa? What brings you to our side of town? This was it, the opening she needed. I'm looking for something different, something real. Real? Interesting word choice. Casimir gestured to the bartender, who brought him a glass of something dark and viscous. Blood, Willa realized with a shudder she tried to hide. Most humans who come here are looking for a thrill, a safe walk on the wild side. But you seem like you want more. Maybe I'm tired of the lies, Willa said carefully. Tired of pretending that vampires are just like us, that we can all coexist peacefully. I work in healthcare. I see the resources diverted to accommodate your kind while humans suffer. Casimir's eyes glinted with interest. Go on. I lost my brother when I was young. Cancer. The treatment he needed was available, but the funding kept getting redirected to vampire blood banks, to special medical research for people who are already immortal. Tell me how that's fair. It was close enough to the truth that the emotion in her voice was real. Casimir leaned closer, clearly hooked. It's not fair, he agreed. The current system is designed to keep your kind subservient, sheep being slowly fleeced while told it's for your own good. Exactly. Willa took a calculated risk. I've heard there are others who feel the same way, vampires who think things should change. There are. Casimir glanced around, then lowered his voice. What do you know about the Covenant? Only rumors, that they want to take back what's rightfully theirs. More than that. They want to establish a new order, one where the natural hierarchy is restored, predators on top, as nature intended. His voice carried absolute conviction. Humans would be protected, cared for, but in their proper place. As food, Willa said flatly. As resources. Don't make it sound so crude. Casimir smiled. Think about it, Willa. No more poverty, no more crime. Vampires would manage human society, and in exchange, humans would provide sustenance. Everyone gets what they need. Except freedom. Freedom is overrated. Security is what matters. He placed a hand on her arm, and it took everything Willa had not to flinch away. You're angry. You're hurt. The Covenant could use someone like you. Use me how? That's not for me to say. But if you're interested in learning more, in maybe helping create this new world, I could arrange an introduction. His eyes bored into hers. Would you be interested, Willa? This was the moment, the point of no return. Willa thought of Valdren waiting somewhere nearby. She thought of the pendant around her neck and the promise she'd made to be careful. I'd be very interested, she said. Casimir's smile widened. Excellent. There's a gathering tomorrow night. I'll send you the location. He pulled out a phone. Even revolutionary vampires used smartphones, apparently, and Willa rattled off her number. One more thing, Casimir said as he stood to leave. Come alone. The Covenant values discretion. If you bring anyone or tell anyone, the invitation vanishes. Understood? Understood. After he left, Willa waited a careful 15 minutes before leaving the bar herself. She walked 2 blocks before Valdren appeared from the shadows, moving so fast she gasped. Are you all right? His hands were on her shoulders, his eyes scanning her for injuries. Did he hurt you? I'm fine. He bought it. Willa quickly relayed the conversation. Valdren's expression darkened. You can't go alone tomorrow night. I have to, or they'll know something's wrong. Then we follow you, close enough to intervene. Valdren, if they sense other vampires nearby, they'll either kill me or run. We need this information. She took his hands. I'll have the pendant. I'll signal if I need help. But we have to let this play out. Every line of his body radiated tension and disagreement, but finally he nodded. Fine. But I'm tracking you every second, and at the first sign of danger, you'll be there, I know. She kissed him, trying to ease his worry. We're so close. We just need to hold our nerve a little longer. The next night felt like walking into a nightmare. The location Casimir had sent was an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district, exactly the kind of place where horror movie murders happened. Willa parked her car, actually Valdren's car, since she didn't own one, and walked toward the building with her heart hammering. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed, candles everywhere casting dramatic shadows, and vampires, at least 30 of them, maybe more. They stood in clusters, talking in low voices. At the far end, on a raised platform, stood a figure that commanded immediate attention. He was tall, taller than Valdren, with white hair that fell to his waist and eyes that glowed like embers. He wore black from head to toe, and when he moved, everyone else seemed to fade into insignificance. Welcome, newcomers, his voice carried effortlessly through the space. I am Drakul Volkov, leader of the Covenant of the Red Dawn. You're here because you're dissatisfied with the current order, because you know that vampires are meant to rule, not hide. Tonight, we begin planning the uprising that will change our world forever. Willa's blood ran cold. This wasn't just talk anymore. This was real, organized rebellion. Drakul's gaze swept the room and landed on her. A human. How interesting. Casimir, explain. Casimir stepped forward. This is Willa, my lord. She has reason to hate the current system. I thought she might prove useful. Useful. Dracul stepped down from the platform and walked toward Willa with predatory grace. Come closer, human. Let me see you. Willa forced herself to walk forward. Up close, Dracul was even more intimidating. Ancient power radiated from him like heat. He circled her slowly, studying her from every angle. You smell like fear, he observed, but also like anger. Tell me, Willa, what do you want? I want change, she said, keeping her voice steady. I want the truth instead of pretty lies about coexistence. The truth, Dracul tilted his head. The truth is that vampires are apex predators and humans are prey. The truth is that the natural order has been perverted by weak leadership that cares more about human feelings than vampire strength. The truth is that Valdren Ymir is a traitor to his own kind, and his reign will end in blood and fire. Willa's hands clenched into fists, but she kept her expression neutral. When? Soon. We have weapons now, silver weapons blessed and forged specifically to kill vampire royalty. We've already proven they work. Dracul's smile was cruel. Valdren carries our mark. He's weakened, vulnerable. And when we strike next time, we won't just wound him, we'll remove his head and take his throne. And then what? Willa asked. You expect humans to just submit? Humans will do what they have always done, adapt or die. Dracul gestured to the assembled vampires. We have armies, we have weapons, we have centuries of rage at being forced to hide and pretend to be tame. When we reveal ourselves, when we take what's ours, humans will fall in line quickly enough. This was insane. These vampires were planning a massacre, a war that would destroy countless lives. Willa needed to get this information back to Valdren, needed to... However, Dracul continued, his eyes never leaving Willa's face, I'm not entirely convinced of your loyalty. You appeared too conveniently. You asked too many questions. He moved faster than thought, suddenly inches from her face. And you reek of Valdren's scent. Tell me, little human, does the Vampire King know you're here? Willa's hand moved to the pendant under her shirt, but Dracul was faster. He grabbed her wrist, his grip like iron. A tracking device, I assume. How predictable. He ripped the pendant from her neck, the chain breaking. Casimir, you fool. You've brought a spy into our midst. My lord, I didn't know... Silence. Dracul pulled Willa against him, and she felt the press of fangs against her throat. But perhaps this isn't a disaster. Perhaps this is an opportunity. Valdren will come for her. He won't be able to help himself, and when he does, weakened and desperate, we'll be waiting. Let her go. The voice echoed through the warehouse, and Willa felt a rush of relief so intense it made her dizzy. Valdren stood in the doorway, and he looked like the avatar of death itself. His eyes blazed crimson, his fangs were fully extended, and the air around him seemed to crackle with power. Behind him stood Serafina, Lucian, and a dozen other vampires from his court. Ah, Valdren, right on schedule. Dracul kept his grip on Willa, but turned to face his enemy. I was beginning to think you wouldn't come. Release her, now. Valdren's voice was deadly calm. Your fight is with me, not her. She's a human in vampire affairs. That makes her everyone's business. Dracul's fangs pressed harder against Willa's throat, and she felt a bead of blood well up. Besides, she came here willingly. She wanted to see our operation. I'm merely giving her the full experience. Valdren moved forward, but Serafina grabbed his arm. It's a trap, my king. The warehouse is surrounded. As if on cue, vampires emerged from the shadows, dozens of them, all armed with silver weapons. They encircled Valdren's group, cutting off escape routes. You see? Dracul laughed. I've been planning this for months, every variable accounted for. Did you really think I didn't know about your little spy operation? I wanted you to come here, wanted you weakened and desperate. Now you'll die, your court will fall, and I'll take your throne. You overestimate yourself, Valdren said coldly, and you underestimate me. What happened next was chaos. Valdren moved with impossible speed, cutting through the attacking vampires like they were paper. His court followed, and suddenly the warehouse was full of fighting vampires. Silver blades flashed, blood sprayed, and the air filled with screams. Drackle threw Willa aside. She hit the concrete hard, pain exploding through her shoulder, and joined the fight. He and Valdren clashed in the center of the warehouse, two ancient powers colliding. Willa scrambled to her feet, looking for a way to help. She saw Casimir fighting with Lucian, saw Serafina take down two Covenant members at once. The battle was brutal and terrifying. Then she saw it, a fallen silver blade, longer than a knife but shorter than a sword. She grabbed it, ignoring the way the metal burned her human skin, and looked for an opening. Valdren and Drackle were evenly matched, trading blows faster than Willa could track. But Drackle had reinforcements. Another vampire, a female with wild eyes, was creeping up behind Valdren with a silver dagger raised. Willa didn't think. She ran forward and drove her silver blade into the female vampire's back. The creature screamed, a sound like breaking glass, and dissolved into ash. Valdren spun, saw what Willa had done, and his expression was both grateful and furious. "Get back!" But the distraction cost him. Drackle's blade sliced across his chest, opening a vicious wound. Valdren staggered, and Drackle pressed his advantage. "You were always weak, Valdren. Weak and soft. That's why you'll lose." Drackle raised his blade for a killing strike. Willa screamed. Time seemed to slow. She saw everything with perfect clarity, the blade descending. Valdren too wounded to dodge, the triumphant gleam in Dracul's eyes. And then Serafina was there, moving with the speed and grace of a vampire 10 times her age. She caught Dracul's wrist, twisted, and disarmed him. Before he could react, she drove his own blade through his chest. Drackle looked down in shock at the silver protruding from his heart. "Impossible." "Nothing's impossible," Serafina said coldly. "You should have remembered that." Drackle crumbled to ash, and with their leader gone, the Covenant vampires faltered. Some tried to run, others fought to the death, but within minutes it was over. Willa ran to Valdren, who'd collapsed against a wall. The wound on his chest was bad, bleeding too much. "We need to get you back to the court, now." "I'm fine," he said, though he clearly wasn't. "You're an idiot," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You're a brave, protective, frustrating idiot, and I love you." He blinked, surprise cutting through the pain. "What?" "I love you. I'm in love with you. And if you die right now, I'm going to be really angry." She pressed her hands against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Valdren laughed, which turned into a cough. "Can't have that." He touched her face gently. "I love you too, Willa Oakley. From the moment you cleaned my wounds without fear, from the moment you challenged me and made me feel alive again. Then stay alive now. Please." Lucian appeared beside them. "We need to move. More Covenant members might arrive." Together, they got Valdren back to the underground court. Willa worked on him for hours, cleaning the new wounds, extracting more silver, praying to anyone who might listen that he would survive. It was dawn, or what passed for dawn, in the timeless underground, when his wounds finally stabilized. Willa sat beside his bed, exhausted and covered in blood, holding his hand. His eyes opened slowly. "Still here?" "Always," she promised. "For as long as you'll have me." "That might be a very long time." He pulled her down beside him on the bed, wrapping his arms around her. "Centuries, if I can convince you. I'm human, Valdren. I age. I die. We need to face that reality. We will. But not today." He kissed her forehead. "Today we celebrate being alive. Tomorrow we can worry about the rest." The aftermath of the battle took weeks to resolve. The remaining Covenant members scattered, many seeking amnesty from Valdren's court in exchange for information. Dracul's network was dismantled piece by piece. Other vampire courts across the world sent representatives to congratulate Valdren on his victory and to affirm their commitment to the treaties. Throughout it all, Willa remained by Valdren's side. She became a recognized member of his court, not as a servant or a blood source, but as his partner. The council, even skeptical Draven, came to respect her courage and intelligence. "You've changed him," Serafina told Willa one evening. They were in the underground gardens, walking among the glowing plants. "I've known Valdren for 3 centuries, and I've never seen him this content." "He's changed me too," Willa admitted. "I used to think I had my life figured out. Work, pay bills, get through each day. Now everything's different." "Do you regret it?" Willa thought about it seriously. "No, It's terrifying and complicated, and sometimes I still can't believe this is my life. But no, I don't regret it. Good. Because he needs you. We all need you. Serafina paused. The court has been too isolated for too long. You remind us what we're protecting, why the treaties matter. I'm just one person who changed everything, Serafina smiled. Never underestimate the power of a single brave soul, Willa. 3 months after the battle, Valdren called a formal court assembly. Willa stood beside him in the grand hall, wearing a dress the color of midnight that Serafina had helped her choose. Every vampire in the court was present, along with representatives from other territories. We've faced challenges recently, Valdren began, his voice carrying through the chamber, threats to our way of life, to the peace we've maintained for nearly 2 centuries. But we've survived. We've proven that strength doesn't mean domination. It means protection, leadership, honor. He turned to Willa, taking her hand. I've also learned something personal. That immortality without connection is just existence, not life. That love, when you find it, is worth any risk. Willa's heart raced as she realized what he was doing. Willa Oakley, you've shown more courage than vampires twice your age. You've stood beside me through danger, challenged my assumptions, and made me believe in possibilities I'd abandoned long ago. He knelt before her, a king humbling himself. I know the complications. I know we have obstacles to face, but I want to face them with you. If you'll have me. Valdren. She looked around at the assembled court, all watching with varying expressions of surprise and approval. Are you sure? I've never been more certain of anything. His crimson eyes held hers. Say yes, Willa. Be mine. Let me be yours. She pulled him to his feet and kissed him in front of everyone. Yes, absolutely yes. The court erupted in applause and cheers. Serafina was actually smiling. Even Draven looked grudgingly pleased. That night, alone in Valdren's private chambers, they lay together in his enormous bed. Willa traced patterns on his bare chest, marveling at how comfortable this had become. What happens now? She asked. I'm still human. I still age. We have options. Valdren's fingers played with her hair. There are ways to extend human life without full transformation. Ancient magics, rare potions. I've already researched them. Of course you have. I told you I'm possessive and protective to a fault. He smiled. But ultimately, the choice is yours. Whatever you decide, whatever future you want, I'll move heaven and earth to give it to you. What if I just want this? You and me for as long as we can have it. Then that's what we'll have. He pulled her closer. No one knows what the future holds, Willa, not even immortals. But I know I want to face it with you. She kissed him softly. Then that's what we'll do. Face it together. Years passed. Willa continued working as a healer, but now she specialized in vampire medicine, becoming one of the few humans recognized as an expert in the field. She published papers, taught other human doctors about vampire physiology, and helped bridge the gap between the two species. Valdren ruled with strength and wisdom, and his court prospered. The Covenant's attempted uprising had actually strengthened the treaties. Other vampire courts saw the danger of rebellion and recommitted to peace. And through it all, Willa and Valdren built a life together. It wasn't conventional. There were challenges, social pressures, biological differences, the constant awareness that her time was limited compared to his immortality. But they faced each obstacle as they'd faced everything else. Together. On their 5th anniversary, Valdren took her to the surface world, to a rooftop garden he'd created specifically for her. It was sunset, carefully timed so he could be there without danger, and the sky was painted in shades of orange and gold. I have something for you, he said, producing a small crystal vial filled with shimmering liquid. It's called the Elixir of Extended Years, one of the ancient magics I mentioned. It won't make you immortal, but it will give you approximately a vampire's aging rate, decades of youth instead of years. Willa took the vial carefully. How long have you been planning this? Since the moment you said yes. He touched her face gently. I want every possible year with you, Willa, every moment I can steal from fate. She looked at the vial, then at him. This was a huge decision. Taking it would mean stepping even further from her human life, from normal aging, from everything she'd once expected. But when she looked at Valdren, At the love and hope in his ancient eyes, the choice was easy. Together, she said, echoing her promise from years ago. We face everything together. She drank the elixir. It tasted like starlight and promises, and she felt it settle into her bones like a warm embrace. Valdren kissed her as the sun finished setting and stars began to emerge. I love you, Willa Oakley, my brave, steadfast human who cleaned a vampire king's wounds and somehow saved his soul. I love you too, Valdren Ymir, my immortal king who learned to feel again. They stood together on that rooftop, vampire and human, king and healer, looking out over the city they protected together. The future stretched before them, uncertain but full of possibility. And for the first time in 800 years, Valdren looked forward to every moment of it. The underground court continued to thrive. More humans came to work alongside vampires, building genuine friendships and partnerships. The fear and suspicion that had always existed between the species didn't disappear entirely, but it diminished, replaced gradually by understanding and mutual respect. Willa became an ambassador of sorts, speaking to human communities about vampire culture and to vampire courts about human concerns. She helped draft new versions of the ancient treaties, updating them for the modern world while preserving the core principles that kept both species safe. Serafina took Willa aside one evening, years into her new life. You've accomplished something remarkable. You've changed vampire society more than you realize. I just try to help where I can. Exactly. And that sincerity, that genuine desire to do good, it's infectious. The ancient vampire studied her. You've given Valdren something I thought he'd lost forever, hope for the future. That matters more than you know. Willa thought about that conversation often. She'd never set out to change anything grand. She'd just cleaned a wounded vampire king's silver burn, asked what had done it, and followed where that question led. Everything else had simply unfolded from that moment of compassion. Sometimes the most profound changes started with the smallest acts of care. Decades passed, the elixir worked exactly as Valdren had promised. Willa aged slowly, gracefully, maintaining her vitality far beyond normal human limits. She watched the world change around them, technology advancing, social attitudes evolving, but the core of what she and Valdren shared remained constant. They faced challenges, certainly. There were vampires who still resented Valdren's human consort. There were humans who feared what Willa had become, but they weathered every storm together, their bond growing stronger with each passing year. On what would have been her 70th birthday by normal counting, though she looked perhaps 40, Valdren organized a celebration in the underground court. Vampires and humans mingled freely, something that would have been unthinkable when they'd first met. What do you wish for? Valdren asked her as they danced together in the great hall. Willa looked around at the life they'd built, at the community they'd fostered, at the love they'd nurtured despite every obstacle. Nothing. I have everything I need. You're certain? I could give you anything. You already have. She rested her head against his chest. You gave me a purpose, a family, a love story for the ages. What more could I possibly want? Valdren held her closer. More time. I always want more time with you. Then we're in agreement. She smiled up at him. Lucky for us, we have plenty of it. They danced until dawn approached and the court began to retire to their quarters. In the privacy of their chambers, Willa and Valdren lay together as they had countless times before, comfortable in the silence that came from knowing each other completely. Do you ever regret it? Valdren asked quietly. Giving up a normal human life for this strange existence with me? Willa turned to face him, seeing the vulnerability in his ancient eyes. Even after all these years, he still worried about her happiness, still feared that he'd somehow stolen her future. Never, she said firmly, not for a single moment. My life with you has been extraordinary, Valdren, full of adventure and purpose and love. What's normal compared to that? I just want you to be happy. I am happy, completely, utterly happy. She kissed him softly. Stop worrying and just enjoy this with me. I can do that. He pulled her close, and they lay entwined in the darkness, two souls who'd found each other against all odds. The years continued to flow. Willa and Valdren became something of a legend in both vampire and human circles, proof that cooperation between the species was possible, that love could bridge any divide. Young vampires came to their court to learn diplomacy. Human healers studied under Willa. Their home became a beacon of hope and possibility. There were still dangers, of course. Rogue vampires who rejected the treaties. Human extremists who wanted all vampires destroyed. But Valdren and Willa faced each threat together, their partnership unshakable. And through it all, the love that had begun with a simple act of healing, a silver burn, continued to grow, deepen, and transform everything it touched. On a quiet evening nearly 50 years after they'd met, Willa and Valdren walked through the underground gardens. The bioluminescent plants cast everything in soft blue light, and the air was filled with the scent of night-blooming flowers. I've been thinking, Willa said, her hand in his, about legacy, about what we leave behind. And what conclusion have you reached? That the greatest legacy isn't power or wealth or even the changes we've made to society. She stopped walking and turned to face him. It's love. It's showing others that differences don't have to divide us, that compassion matters more than fear. Valdren smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. You've always been wiser than me. Not wiser, just more optimistic. She touched his face gently. You carry 8 centuries of pain and loss, Valdren, but you've never let it destroy your capacity for love. That's not weakness. That's the greatest strength I know. He kissed her then, tender and deep, a kiss that held decades of shared history and unspoken promises. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I was lost before you found me, Willa. Existing, but not living. You showed me how to feel again, how to hope. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. We saved each other, she corrected. I was adrift too, just going through motions. You gave me purpose, adventure, a love story I never dreamed possible. They stood together in the glowing garden, vampire king and human healer, bound by a love that had defied every expectation and overcome every obstacle. The future still held uncertainties. Willa's extended life would eventually end, leaving Valdren alone once more. But that was a grief for another day. Tonight, they had each other. Tonight, and for many nights to come, they would face the world together, side by side, proving with every moment that love could indeed conquer all. The underground court settled into peaceful rhythm as darkness deepened outside. Somewhere above, the city carried on, unaware of the vampire kingdom beneath its streets, unaware of the extraordinary love story that had changed the fate of 2 species. But in the quiet chambers of the king, Willa and Valdren held each other close, content in the knowledge that they'd found something rare and precious, a love worth fighting for, worth changing for, worth building an entire life around. And as they drifted toward sleep, both knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges tomorrow brought, they would face them together, united by a bond that had begun with compassion and grown into something eternal. The silver burn that had brought them together had long since healed, leaving only the faintest scar on Valdren's side. But the question Willa had asked that first night, "What did this to you?" had led them both on a journey neither could have anticipated. It had led them to love, to partnership, to a future built on trust and understanding rather than fear and division. And that, they both knew, was worth every risk they'd taken, every danger they'd faced, every obstacle they'd overcome. Together, they had changed their world. But more importantly, they had changed each other, and in doing so, had created something beautiful and lasting, a love that would echo through centuries, inspiring others to believe that even the most unlikely connections were possible. In the end, that was all that mattered. Not power or politics or the grand sweep of history, just 2 souls who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to build something luminous together. The vampire king and his human healer, united by a silver burn and bound by a love that would endure for all their days. Their story was complete, their circle closed, their love triumphant against every odd. and in the quiet underground court, as vampire and human slept entwined, peace reigned hard-won, precious and perfect.